If you're struggling to stay consistent with your blog, but you know it's going to help grow your business, this episode is for you. This week, my guest is Eden from Maven Made Copy, and she knows that blogging can be overwhelming, what to write, when to write, how to make it work for your business, but it doesn't need to be. So, Eden is sharing all of her tips about everything blogging. She is on a mission to simplify blogging while maximizing results. Eden is an SEO-driven blog strategist that helps creative entrepreneurs boost their visibility and attract their dream clients. So, whether you're just starting out or want to take your blog to the next level, Eden is going to be sharing so many tools, tips, and strategies to make blogging approachable and easy for you. And be sure to sign me your blog after you listen to this because I really want to see what you're writing about. Welcome to the Employee to Boss podcast, a podcast for everyone with an entrepreneurial spirit. Every week, I am joined by successful guests in all different industries and stages of business who will share what their experience was like transitioning from employee to boss. This is a resource for you if you're wanting to start a business, go all in on your side hustle, get to the next level in your thriving business, or just hear what it's like taking the leap to becoming your own boss. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast production agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. Let's dive into today's topic. Hey, Eden, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm really excited for today's conversation.
Hi, thank you. Me too. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, why don't you start off by telling us more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Eden, and I am the founder of Maven Made Copy. I offer blog writing services tied in with a heavy emphasis on SEO. So, focusing on helping my clients boost their SEO and their search rankings and their website traffic through a blog strategy.
I love that. And I think that blogging is a piece of business that some people are all about and some people are like, does it work? And obviously it works. People like you are experts in it. People do it all the time and it works for a lot of different industries. So I'm really excited to dive more into the world of blogging with you today and, planning out that content, what to post, when to post, all of that. But before we get into all of the fun of blogging, can you tell us more about your journey from employee to boss? So, what did you used to do and how did you start your business?
Yes, I graduated college in 2018 with a marketing degree, and I got straight into the corporate world working in a marketing job at a very small business. So it was just me and my boss doing everything marketing for the whole company. So I think it was a good starter job for me because it allowed me to dip my toes into a lot of different aspects of marketing that sometimes you just don't learn in a classroom. So we were doing everything from like website updates, emails, social media, blogs, webinars, and then sales assistants. Like it's everything, literally everything for the whole company. And I've always kind of had an interest in entrepreneurship, but when I was in college, in my head I was like, "Oh, that means I have to own a brick and mortar store," and I don't want to do that. And about a year into adult life, I guess, of a
Mhm.
real full time job, I was introduced to the concept of an online business. And I was like, okay, I can get behind that. Like,
Yes.
yes. So I started a business in 2020 during the pandemic that started off as more of a virtual assistance position and services, mostly because I had that marketing background and I just wasn't sure what I wanted to offer yet. I wasn't sure like if this was for me. So I was like, I know how to do this. I'm good at it. And people need these services. So let's offer them. So I was doing everything from blog writing to social media, emails, Pinterest, landing page design, like a bunch of different things. And over time, I just kind of started to realize that blogging and SEO was where my true passions were. I kind of started to dread doing the other stuff.
Mhm.
So that was kind of a signal to me that I needed to niche down and just offer blog writing and SEO. So that's where I
I
am
love
today.
that. I love that. And I do think So I started my business as a virtual assistant also, and so there's a lot of tasks that go into that, and I loved podcasting and I was offering podcasting as part of it, but the main way I was making money was from virtual assisting, and this was back in 2020 when, like, Facebook groups were the place to be, and, like, you could make multiple six figures from your Facebook group. Do you remember that time? It was,
Yes.
like, almost like a fever dream thinking about it now because Facebook groups are so dead, but that was, like, what I was really helping people with was, like, building their Facebook groups. And it was not a passion of mine at all. It was something that I was doing for money, but I mean, I had to do something else because I was not passionate about it. So that's why I went all into podcast management and I'm so happy with that decision. But just like you, it does take, you know, listening to yourself, hearing your passions, seeing what feels good to you in your business. Because I think that's why a lot of businesses stop early on, is because they're doing things for money rather than for passion, you know?
Yeah, I totally relate to that, and, I mean, it took me 4 years to figure it out. So, because I relaunched my business with, like, niching down like this in April of 2024, so
Mm.
it took me a long time to figure it out, and then once I did figure it out, it took me a minute to actually make the leap and do it. Because I had to have,
Yeah.
like, hard conversations with clients of, like, "I'm so sorry I'm not offering this anymore, but I have these new services. Do you wanna, like, come over with me
Yeah.
in this new business?" And some said yes, some said no. And that was just like really scary. I had to invest a lot of money into a new website, new branding, and all the things. It's a lot of time and effort and money, but I'm so much happier now that I've done it. And it feels much more aligned to where I want to grow and the need that I see in the industry.
Absolutely. Can you tell us more about what those conversations were like? Because I think, like, that is like, I haven't had anyone on the podcast talk about that yet, so I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, I had I like tried to niche down last year and called myself
Mhm.
like a copywriter. So I was kind of taking off like, oh, I don't really do Pinterest anymore because that's not really aligned with copywriting. Like, so I tried to do it that way and it just like didn't stick because there were still clients that treated me as a virtual assistant because that's how I started with them. And I just had to kind of draw the line and be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, this is my package. And I this is how it transfers to what we're doing now. So I kind of tried to relate it of, yes, we're writing blogs now, but you're not getting like the strategy like you would be in these new packages. And what's the point of blog writing without the strategy? So I kind of tried to help them see how the difference in the package and the pricing honestly would make sense for their business. And I think too, I had worked with some people long enough that they're just like, I know you, I trust you, I want to
Mhm.
keep working with you, let's do it. And then some had questions, of course, any kind of change you have questions. So I was happy to talk through my clients with that. And some people just decided this isn't for me. I'm looking for more of the virtual assistant position. So I'm going to go find someone else. And I'm like, it's totally fine. I totally get it. And we left on completely great terms.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and, educating on new offers is one of the most important things, like you're saying, so thank you for sharing that because I know a lot of people who are kind of in that limbo where they have virtual assisting clients and they don't wanna leave them, but then they aren't passionate about it and they have a new business idea. So that takes a lot of bravery, and thank you for kind of sharing how that story went because it's so important to hear.
Yeah. And I will say too that I gave some of my clients like a few months of like leadway into
Yeah.
transitioning to the new packages. So I told them about it in March before I even launched my website so that they had plenty of time to make other arrangements if they had to, or, you know, figure out their budget or decide whatever. And some people went through like the end of July. So it's, 4 or 5 months that I
Yeah.
gave them of like, here's the transition period. If you do hire someone else, like I will still be on board to like help them through that. So I I tried to be very like reasonable and make some accommodations for people that this change was probably really shocking to them and they're kind of freaking out. So I tried to make it as easy as possible.
And that also helps keep that bridge
Yeah.
between you and the client, and it doesn't just be like, "Oh, I'm done." Like, you have to go
Yeah.
find someone else. I've even had people message me, like other podcast managers, and they're like, "Hey, I'm no longer doing this. I'm about to tell my clients, are you taking on clients? I'm trying to build them a list of like 3 to 5 people to refer them to." And that's also another great way to not burn that bridge because you never know what their needs are going to be down the line. Like, yes, you might be helping them with virtual assisting now, but a couple years from now, they might need what you offer currently and they've already worked with you and they can build that referral base. And yeah, so I think that's really, really interesting. So tell us about the shift to full-time blog writing and all that you do now. What is it that you offer?
It's a lot of writing.
Yeah.
So I do focus mostly my packages on the strategy side because really like any business owner could sit down and write a blog if they want to. You have an idea, you can just sit down and write a few hundred words and post it as a blog. But what's the strategy behind that? Do you have a background in SEO? Do you understand the best practices? Can you keep up with algorithm changes? Because it seems like they happen every other day. So I think just having someone on your team who like can fill that position, and even if you do like writing, I'm not saying you can't publish your own blogs, but I'm going to help you with like the direction and the strategy behind blogging so your efforts aren't wasted. And then I give them, topic ideas. I know that's a really big barrier to people getting started of just like, what do I even write about?
Mhm.
So I help with topic ideas. I do reporting. I do keyword research. So it's a lot of strategy and then like the blog writing itself of just putting out a good quality blog that's valuable to your audience and that's something that they want to read.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is blog strategy? Like, what does that all encompass?
It's a combination of writing for your audience because they're the people who are actually going to work with you and buy from you. So you want to make it engaging so that they actually want to read it.
Mhm.
But then on the other side, you want to make sure it's optimized for search engines so that your audience and new people in your audience can actually find the blog. So it's
Yes.
kind of twofold of you want to write for search engines, but you also want to write for a human being. And I
Yeah.
think that kind of gets into the conversation a little bit of AI and
Mhm.
how that's kind of come into the industry. I think right now it lacks the human element of writing for an audience. It's focused mostly on writing for facts, and it can write for search engines a little bit, but it's not up to par with what a human can do at this point.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like a lot of the time AI can help with concepts, but it can't help make sales. Like,
Yeah.
it can't help with writing, like you're saying, for your specific audience. It can write to a bigger audience, but let's say who is it that you specifically work with? Because I usually work with like female business owners who have a business, they have their brand set up, but like they don't have time to specifically run their podcast. So that's why they hire me. So who is it like you niche down to?
Yeah, I have similar audience. I define it as like creative female entrepreneurs. So I work
Hmm.
with a lot of people like in the branding space and photographers and other people in SEO and copywriting and web design. So other people too that are just they want to put time into their marketing and into their content and they just can't or they don't want to, but they know they need
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and so AI is definitely cannot understand that 100% and write to that, so I think that it's great that you are able to kind of have more of that strategy piece in there, and then also, I know a lot of people make money from their blogs, and they can monetize, get clients, whatever it may be, but do you help with the monetization aspect of blog writing?
I do have an add-on that I offer for affiliate marketing. So
Mhm.
I don't do much on the advertising side. I just am not comfortable with paid ads and offering
Yeah.
that service at this point. But on the affiliate side, I think it's really easy to sign up for platforms that have an affiliate program that these platforms that you already use. For example, like maybe Dipsado or Asana or Canva these things you already use and you already recommend, you might as well get an affiliate sale from it if you can. So part of my add-on is to find those opportunities, apply on behalf of my clients, and then put those links in their blogs wherever they apply.
Very cool. I think that affiliate marketing is great, especially just to make some extra money here and there with those clicks,
Yeah.
but that's really cool. So, another piece of blogging is obviously the content. And as you were mentioning, you help your clients come up with the content topics. How do you do that? Because I think that is like a big piece that a lot of people, I mean, I feel like I hear all the time, and I'm sure you hear it even more being in the space. People are like, "Yeah, I have a blog, but I like posted once." Or "I have a blog, but I'm not very active on it." And then you go look and it was like 3 years ago that they posted. And I think content is like a big piece that holds them back.
Yeah, I agree. I think people get hung up on figuring out what to write about because I think you do get in your head a little bit with the what do my audience want to what do they want to read about, and then how do I make it SEO friendly and all this stuff, and then you just kind of get, is it paralysis by analysis or
Yeah.
vice versa, whatever, just like you get so in your head that you just don't do it. So
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people struggle. I also see a lot of people who will actually write the blog, put it in WordPress, and then leave it in draft mode. They never actually
Mm.
publish it. And I'm like, what's the point? So, one of the things that I do for helping my clients come up with topics is I read through their old content and see if there's any opportunity to link. So, backlinks are important in your content of linking to other articles that relate, but you don't go into like super in depth. So, for example, like if I were talking about how to find blog topics, and one section in that blog was do keyword research. And I say, I use Uber Suggest for keyword research. I could link to another article that's saying, here is how you perform keyword research in Uber Suggest. But I'm not going to go into it that much in that topics blog because it's just not super relevant, but it does relate. So, like that internal linking is very important for an SEO strategy. So, I look through their old articles and see if like they mention something, but they never go in depth on it. And that's an opportunity to write another article and then have that internal link. Another place I like to find topic ideas is their social media. So, any posts or reels that really perform well, I look to see what they're talking about and if I can make a blog out of it. Sometimes you can't because sometimes social media posts are just for engagement and they're not really like educating, but sometimes that's a good place to find topics. Also, like I mentioned before, keyword research, that's a great place. You can type in a word or phrase that you kind of have an idea around and then see what keywords pop up that are relevant to the topic, and maybe they come up and they're phrased a different way than you would think to write about it. They could give you a new idea completely. So, those are some of the few places that I go to most often.
I love that. And I truly believe that creative entrepreneurs have no problem coming up with content, but putting that content to reality is like the hard part. So, like, for me, I could talk probably to a brick wall, like I could talk for hours and hours and hours, but I was thinking of doing a masterclass series. And I'm like, well, what would I talk about? And I'm like, Haley, you could talk about anything. And so it's just coming up with those strategic topics that will not only appeal to the audience, but also appeal to SEO, like you're saying, and make sure that people are actually seeing it. So I'm assuming you have a blog, correct?
Yes.
Where can people find that blog just so they can go see your topics?
It's mavenmadecopy.com and then / blog.
Okay. So what is like when you put up a blog post, what is the goal that you have? Like after you press publish, what would make you feel successful as a blogger in that situation?
Oh, that's a great question. I always feel really good when someone responds to my blog.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you actually read it. Thank you so much." I think that just like is a good feeling that you're not just publishing something out into the ether and that someone, a human, is actually reading it. So I love getting feedback like that. I also take a look at my analytics just as a whole. And I like to see which blogs perform the best on search engines, because those are real people coming to your website, and then seeing what they do after that. So all those links that I have in my blogs, either to more relevant articles or to a call to action, like I like to see like where they go after that.
Mhm.
And it's really telling if they don't go anywhere, because then that might say I need to revisit this blog and see if my call to action isn't relevant or if it's not resonating with them in some way. So I do look at the strategy behind that as well when I'm looking at the success of my blog, because I mean the ultimate goal of blogging and SEO is to drive traffic to your website and then make those people convert into either filling out a contact form or getting on your email list, downloading a freebie, like taking some sort of action to stay connected with you. That's always the goal. And so I think that's another way to see if your blog is doing well, is if you are seeing an uptick in contact forms, email subscribers, stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. And when it comes to consistency with blog posting or even thinking about like if you have a launch coming up or anything more timely, what advice do you have on that?
I live by and swear by my content calendar that I keep for basically all my content, but specifically my blogs, because I think like we were talking about before with the topics, like you can get in your head when you sit down to write and you're like, okay, so what am I going to write about today?
Mhm.
Versus having a calendar where you're like, okay, today I'm writing about this topic. I've had a month or whatever to think about it. I kind of know what I want to write about. It just makes the process so much easier. So I have my blog content planned at least a month in advance, usually a couple more. And I stay consistent with that because I have CEO days in my calendar. So dedicating an entire business day to only my business, not my client work. And that kind of helps me batch my content, think about the strategy, plan for upcoming launches. Like if you know you're going to do a Black Friday sale, then you should probably think about what kind of content you want to write and publish leading up to that. So I think it's just looking at your marketing strategy as a whole from a wider perspective than just like, what am I going to do today?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, just like the macro of it all, like how does
Yeah.
it all work together? So, for anyone who doesn't know exactly what the content calendar looks like, can you describe it a little bit more?
Yes. So I actually have a free template if you guys want to download it too, of my
Amazing.
content calendar. Yeah, that I use for myself and my clients actually. And basically I'll have it's in Airtable. So I have a column for the topic. So this is kind of just like a brain dump column of if I think about something one day, I'll just put it in there, revisit the topic later, see if I actually want to write about it. I'll have the publish date. So once I actually decide I want to write it, I'll put it as like I'm publishing it this day. So I can kind of see ahead of time of what's coming up. I also have the keyword that I want to focus on for that blog. So I'll do keyword research and before I start writing and pick a target keyword that I know I want to put in the title. I know I want to put it in the body copy, in some headings. So stuff like that. I also have a column for the draft link. So I usually write everything in Google Docs. So I'll link it in there. I'll have a column for the published link. So I can just quickly access from there. I have a notes section if, like I said, I use it for my clients. So sometimes I'll ask them questions if, let's say it's a case study, for example, that I know nothing about. I can't research it because it's very specific to their business. So I'll ask them a couple questions, put some notes in there. And I'll also have a column for the content pillar that I'm trying to focus on. So content pillars are like big topics that any of your blogs could fall under. So, for example, mine are blogging, SEO, community, and entrepreneurship, because those are the things I talk about the most. So, all my blogs fall under at least one of those categories. And the reason that this is in my content calendar template is because I want to make sure I'm not writing about the same thing over and over again. So I'll try to mix it up. Like I'll do SEO and then I'll do entrepreneurship and then I'll do blogging, then I'll do entrepreneurship again. So
Mhm.
making sure it's not like SEO, 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 like all back to back, and just trying to mix it up between all those content pillars. So I think
Yeah.
that's mostly it.
Very cool, very cool. I love that you have that for the audience to download because Airtable is a great way to stay organized. There's lots of tools, but if you already have this like built out calendar that people can just kind of like steal and use, that is super, super valuable. So thank you so much for creating that and having it for the audience.
Yeah, hopefully it helps you guys.
I think it should just because as we're saying, like, the overwhelm when it comes to blogging, I see this in the podcast world all the time too, like, coming up with those topics, having guests, consistency, all those things. I feel like blogging and podcasting are kind of like siblings, you know? They're a different way for us to create content that's a little more long form, and podcasts, of course, attracts an audience that likes to learn through listening, and then blogging attracts an audience that likes to learn through reading. And I feel like the two topics can be repurposed back and forth. So, like, if someone does a podcast episode with me, I'm like, okay, you could turn that into a blog post. I'm sure it's like the same with you. If they do a blog post, they could turn it into a podcast. So there's lots of, synchronicities between the two. And it's truly just a way to be seen by more people and have them know you a little bit more because it's so much more than just an Instagram story that deletes in 24 hours or an Instagram post that you're going to have to scroll through one day to find and it's just going to blend in. So these are a little more long lasting due to the SEO.
100%. Yeah, I do see the relationship between podcasting and blogging too, because I have done interviews like this before, and I'm like, I can't even imagine having my own podcast and thinking of ideas. And I'm like, that's literally what I do for blogging. Like, I don't know why it's any different, and I get in my head about it, but like I don't know. I can relate to people who think that though about any type of content you're trying to create.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm the same with blogging. I'm like,
Yeah.
I could never have a weekly blog. Meanwhile, I have a weekly episode coming out. So
Yep.
it's just so funny. It's just so funny that I think it's just strengths and interest and all of those things.
Yes, and I love what you said about repurposing content. Like, I love to repurpose content. I do it all the time. If you follow me on socials, you'll see that a lot of I do promote my blog in the social posts on Instagram, but then I'll like a few weeks later, maybe I'll like, spell it out a little bit more.
Mhm.
Like, this is the content that I have in the blog. You can go read it, but it's also here on Instagram. So, and in my
Yeah,
email list. So I think that's just a smart way to run your business. If you can take what you create and make more of it, I'm all about that.
me too. It saves a lot of time and you don't have to keep what do they say in corporate, reinventing the wheel or whatever?
Yes.
You don't have to keep doing that.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything else you wanna touch on before we start to wrap up?
I would just say that I know there's a lot of fears around blogging and just kind of getting in your head about like what we talked about before, just like what to write about and oh my gosh, I'm not a good writer and I don't have the time to commit to that. And I think there's a lot of excuses for anything that you do in business, but if you want to commit more to blogging and SEO, then you just gotta commit. I don't know, like
Yeah.
schedule it into your calendar. I like to treat my business as a client, and I would never miss a client deadline. So I can't miss a business deadline. Like that's how I hold myself accountable. I put it in my Asana of like, it is due today, so you better do it. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't push it back. Like that's just how I keep myself accountable and dedicated to growing my own business so that I can help more clients.
Oh my gosh. That is such an amazing skill that you have because I think a lot of people are their own worst clients, sometimes
Yeah.
myself included. So, Asana, can you tell us a little bit more about how you use that? Because does that tie into your content planning as well?
I use Asana more for like deadlines and like task management. And then I
Mhm.
use Airtable more for like the planning side
Okay.
and keeping track of all of my ideas and just where things are at in terms of like, this is an idea and this is drafted and this is published versus Asana. It's like, it's being published today. So
It's like, do it.
yeah, exactly. And I keep all my client work in Asana as well. And it's more
Okay.
just like a visual tool for myself to say what I have coming up today and earlier this, and, in the next week and the next month. So yeah, I do use both.
Okay, very cool. I have an episode all about systems and back end of things. It's with my guest named Tara Leeson. So I'll put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn more about like the CRM management type of things. But I've loved everything that we've talked about with blogging and content. And you just make it sound so simple because really it is. You just have to sit down and do it, right? So tell us more about who you work with. I know you told us a little bit, but how can people work with you specifically?
Yeah, I would love to have a conversation with anyone who's interested in blogging or SEO strategy. You can visit my website, which is mavenmadecopy.com, and you can view my packages there. You can read my blogs there. The main package, I would say my biggest package, mostly what people will book me for, is like full service blog management. So
Mhm.
coming up with the ideas, doing the strategy, writing the blogs, publishing the blogs, reporting on the blogs. So the only thing that they do really is approve the topics and approve the articles, and that's it. And they like to be very hands off and just because they know that blogging is important. They just don't have the time to do it themselves, which I totally get. So I try to make it as easy as possible for them to get the benefits of a blog without too much time from them. So that's mostly what people will book me for. But then I do have some other packages that are focused more on the strategy. So if you do like to do the writing yourself and you just need help with the strategic part of coming up with those engaging headlines and doing the keyword research, I can do that strategy side for you. Even coming up with topics, I do for them. And I'll just deliver that to you and you can run with it and do whatever works for your schedule. So those are like two of the main things that I do is just the full service blog management, blog writing, and then just the strategy side.
Very cool. Well, I'll put all of those links in the show notes. And I just have one last question for you, Eden. This is how I start to wrap up every episode. So, I want the audience to take action after listening because that's really where the most value happens. So, I'd love you to challenge them with 3 things that they can accomplish this week to move forward in their business or life or whatever you want to challenge them with, but let's make them take action.
All right. Step number one is to download my free content calendar. And once you have it downloaded, you can use it for blogs. I have it set up for blogs, but you could use it for social media or emails or podcasting or wherever you choose to show up for your audience. So that's step one. Download that free content calendar. Number two is to set a schedule for yourself. So, like I was talking about, I put my deadlines for myself in Asana. So, just put those deadlines in your calendar, create a schedule that works for you, whether it's showing up once a month, once a week, every other week, just whatever you can commit to, because consistency is really key to your growth. And then number three is to hold yourself accountable. Like I said, I treat my business as a client. So if you struggle with this and you are the type to push back your business work because client stuff keeps coming up or you're too tired in the evening or, there's a lot of excuses. I totally get it. I do that for myself sometimes too. But what helps keep me accountable is scheduling CEO days into my calendar. So I have them every other Friday where I just work on my business, and it's made a huge difference in my growth and just like being excited about creating content for my business and my audience. So those are my 3 things.
I love them. I love them. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot from you, and I can't wait for the audience to hear this episode as well.
Thank you so much. It was so nice talking to you.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.